This video is sponsored by Artlist.
Don't always compare your level of success to those around you. Do you know what I mean? Because I think that I used to do that a lot, and it only makes you more unhappy. A colorist is a very creative position, a gaffer is a very creative position, and you have to enable those people to be able to contribute as much as possible, and you have to make them feel like they're part of it. I guess, particularly from a cinematographer's point of view, the first of everything is the hardest one to get. You know, the first car ad, or the first helicopter shoot, or the first film, or you know what I mean? Because people feel much more comfortable, particularly when it comes to us, to have sort of seen a version of what they're asking you to do in the first place. I mean, nothing helps your case more than actually a proof of concept, which is going off your own bat and shooting stuff. When I first started, I would do that all the time. I bought a little standard 16 SR1 for a couple of grand off a film school that was all battered up because it had just been misused for years and years and years. But I'd get short ends off jobs that I would assist on, and then I'd go and do friends' music videos, or just go down and, you know, take it down to the beach and look at shooting into the sun and how I could hold on to the exposure and the highlights as well as the shadows, and kind of teach myself a little bit of those things and make the mistakes on situations where I wasn't accountable for anything, and be able to take the risks on those kinds of projects so that hopefully I wouldn't make them on the other ones, you know, the proper ones, when eventually it would come about. Don't always compare your level of success to those around you. Do you know what I mean? It's not like, oh man, Jason just got this fantastic Audi ad. Why can't I get an Audi ad? Because I think that I used to do that a lot, and it only makes you more unhappy. You know, like everybody has their own path and their own version, and you can't simply, and different trajectories as well. People have different interests, and some things might happen faster for some people, but slower for other people. And you can't bog yourself down comparing yourself to how somebody else is doing well and you're not, and you feel like you should be. I guess you just have to back yourself, which sounds easy enough, but it's also difficult. Like I said before, to get that first job of anything, the first, you know, food ad, if you love shooting food, or the first, helicopter shoot or something, it's very hard for people to give that to people that haven't done it before, unless you believe that you can, and even then sometimes it's tough. But I think you have to, there's a difference between being confident and being arrogant. You know, I'm not suggesting be arrogant and think that you're the best person for the job. It's just believe in yourself and exude confidence, but not arrogance, so that people will follow you and will believe that you're the person for the job, even if you don't think you are. Or in the back of your mind, you know, I'm completely out of my depth here, because I've been in that situation before. But you find a way to deal with it, which again is another reason why, if you're in a position to, always try and hire the best people as your team, as part of your team, from camera assistants to loaders to grips, gaffers, because there will be a time where you will look around and you will not know how to get yourself out of that situation, and that's where those people will support you, and they will help you, and they will show you.
Will, come on!
How do you go about crafting the visual language of a piece of work with a director? Is your cinematography style driven by the script?
100%. I think it has to be. I don't think that you can go in there with a predetermined concept of what it should be. I think you have to work that out. It has to be a conversation with the director and the production designer, and, you know, even the composer. You know, like, it's really interesting to hear. I always ask, like, particularly in montage sequences, or if there's, you know, I'm always fascinated with the editorial pacing of films. Like, I always like to ask directors how, you know, is it single camera, is it multi-camera? You know, because I think that dictates coverage a lot of the time. And music as well, because music is is the instrument that's telling you how to feel at a particular time during a movie, which can really influence how you shoot it. So I know that there are some people who have like a look, and when you employ them, you get the look of that person. But I've never never subscribed to that, because I think cinematography is so infinite in its possibilities. I think to keep repeating yourself, I think, for me personally anyway, I don't think would be as satisfying as the challenge and the opportunity to learn by every project taking it on its own merits and thinking about the best version of that film, regardless of whether you've done that before or not. You know, like the way I used color in season 3 of Stranger Things, I've never done anything like that before. Like huge amounts of blue and neon and red and yellow, and and just using color in a way that was unusual for me, but was wonderful because I just threw myself into it and kind of learnt by going. I think it's really important to be varied. Every job is an opportunity to learn and to try something different, whether it be a lens or a technique or a camera or something. And it's more feathers in the cap when you go into another situation that might be similar to that. Then you've got a version of that you can then adapt or modify or use to the best of your ability. So I think it's important to be varied, for sure.
Oh, the wind is blowing.
See, I think the relationship between a DP and a gaffer has to be probably the second most collaborative after the director on the set, I think, because I always try and work with the best people, always try and work with people that are better than you, because you will always learn from them, which only makes you better at your job. You know, I'm not one of those guys that'll say 10K here, Kino here, 18K over there. It's like, I will talk to them about, here's the concept of what I feel like it should look like. It should be, a couple of stops down and you're here, but maybe there's some hard sun coming through the window. And I'm not descriptive or prescriptive, I should say, about what tools to use, because they might have a better way to do it. And that's how you learn about, we're living in a filmmaking climate which is just changing every week, whether it be cameras or, things like LED lighting technology. Things are changing so fast that the chances are that there's a piece of equipment that you're not even aware of that might do the job you're asking for better than the idea that you have in your head. So you might as well be open to that. So, I did a big lighting setup the other night where, because we had to close roads off and position condors and all that sort of stuff, we had to do a lighting plan, for locations, to know where to put machines and all that sort of stuff. But I'd kind of do like a broad brushstroke approach to that, with the ability to kind of manipulate once you're on the ground as much as you possibly can, have like a big picture idea, but the details you nut out with the gaffer and after you work out what the coverage is with actors, because that's one of the main reasons why I'm not a huge fan of doing lighting diagrams before the directors and the actor have had a chance to block it through, because chances are that an actor might, even though it might say such and such is sitting down in front of a table, and this has happened to me plenty of times before, actors will come in and go, you know what, I was thinking about this on the weekend, and my character, I don't think they'd be sitting at the table. I think that they'd be, eating a bowl of cereal in the bedroom or something like that, and it's all of a sudden, if you pre-lit that or box yourself into that corner and said, this is exactly what it's going to be, then all of that work becomes undone. You've got to race to kind of work something else out. And it's happened a lot. The characters say that they should be, on the page it says that they're sitting down, and they say, no, I should be more anxious at this point, so I want to be pacing up and down, so, and then that changes, and then you react to it, which is what filmmaking is. So I think it's also really important to try and give actors as much leeway as possible, particularly when you're working with minors, with kids, because a really good way to stifle a kid's performance is to limit them with marks and lighting requirements, which is not in the interest of the film and or in you. You might get a nice looking shot, but if it means that the child is too focused on the mechanics of it, then the important part is all missed. So I think it's really critical to think about that sort of stuff when it comes to lighting with actors as well. Is to not, if you think, just ask yourself, if you think you light it in a particular way that is going to make the scene better, but you might have to compromise in a way that you're probably the only person that will really notice it. Is that something that you should do or shouldn't do? And my argument is, well, if it's going to make the scene better, it's going to make everybody's work better. So I'll be prepared to take one on the chin in the interest of the greater good, if that makes sense. It depends. Like, of course, I have a line where it's like I will go to a certain point and then I'll say, "I'm sorry, guys, I can't, in good conscience, offer this up as a shootable frame because of X, Y, Z. You know, because they're 3 stops down here and they're 4 stops over here. You know, So, but I think you just have to be flexible. I really do.
Today's episode is sponsored by Artlist. We use Artlist because they put together a fantastic catalog of high-quality tracks with new songs updated frequently. The one thing that's really great about them is that it's one license. The unlimited license allows you to use the music from the Artlist catalog on all your projects on any platform, including commercial use. This gives you the freedom to use it however you want. Another important part of why we use Artlist is because it's an yearly license that will last forever, even if you don't resubscribe. The link to Artlist is in the description below. You can use that link to get 2 extra months free with your subscription. Do you shoot tests and sit down with your colorists and make LUTs?
Yep. Yes. It depends on the budget level of the project, I suppose. Short answer is yes. Long answer is sometimes. What I do is, over the years, as I've built up quite a library of lookup tables that I'm relatively comfortable, I know what we'll do and what are good uses for them. But every show that I've done, I've always built a separate LUT, or I've taken a LUT that I have and twisted it in a way that I felt best reflected the nature of what we were trying to do. So I'll use Minari as an example. I went out on location with Isaac and the camera guys maybe 3 or 4 days before principal photography, and got some color charts and some grade cards and some stand-ins, and shot some interior day, interior night, exterior day tests, and then applied a bunch of different lookup tables to it, spoke to my colorist about it, and then monitored that because that was a very modest budget film. I just had that lookup table. I think I ended up with 2. Yeah, I think it was only 2 lookup tables for that thing. I really try to keep it simple. I think you can really trip yourself up if you have too many lookup tables. I really do. And I just try and modify the ratios with lighting rather than with lookup tables. But when I did Next Goal Wins with Taika, that we shot just after Minari in Hawaii, that was a tricky one because it was mostly exterior, but I needed something that would work as much as possible for overcasts and full sun. So I remember shooting a bunch. It's the same thing. I shot a bunch of tests and I sent them over to Dave Cole at PhotoChem, and I told him what I was looking for, and he would send back 3 or 4 different versions of a lookup table based on the conversations that we would have. And I love working with someone like Dave Cole because he comes at it from a story side of things as well. He's not necessarily like we will have an open discussion like this where we talk about the tone of the film, how we want to cover it, you know, what are the skin tones, what's the wardrobe look like, etc., all that sort of stuff. But then, and he will interpret that, you know, rather than me just saying, you know, I think it should be, you know, like a subdued highlights and I want to bring the blacks up a little bit and I want it cooler in the shadows, you know, he will interpret that in a much more humane way, which I find really interesting. So having that kind of dialogue with a colorist where you're speaking creatively rather than it's the same thing as like telling a gaffer where to put a light. It's like a colorist is a very creative position, a gaffer is a very creative position, and you have to enable those people to be able to contribute as much as possible, and you have to make them feel like they're part of it, rather than you just instructing them on what to do, because A, that's how you learn, B, they very well might have a better idea than you do, and C, you've always got a plan A to go back to if any of those things don't work, but I really try and incorporate them creatively as much as possible from the get-go, for sure.
What was your approach when connecting with these kind of directors like Taika and Duffer Brothers and Isaac?
Sure. Having somebody vouch for somebody else who you don't know, whose opinion you value and trust, goes an infinite length, I should say, in guaranteeing that person a job and reassuring you in that person's ability. Which is why I always think it's always good to be nice to people and keep you cool, because, you know, I think it's incredibly important. But anyway, as far as Taika goes, it was word of mouth. That's what got me that job. With Isaac, it was my agent. And with the Duffers, it was, again, I was in a car in Melbourne shooting an ad with two, weirdly enough, identical twins, but who weren't the Duffer brothers. And they'd just done a film with the producer Dan Cohen, who is one of the producers of Stranger Things. And I was literally in the car when he called up and said, "Do you know of anybody that you could put forward to shoot some of Stranger Things?" They said, "Well, weirdly enough, we're actually in a car with a guy now who I think you might like." He did Hunt for the Wilderpeople, and then by complete coincidence, Dan Cohen on the other end of the phone is like, "That was my favorite film of 2016. Give me his number."
Wow.
So, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes the stars just align in a way that you could never foresee and never control. So that's what I mean about luck, you know, right place, right time, all that sort of stuff. I mean, but not in your wildest dreams would you imagine something like that ever happening. And that was just a chance occurrence. I wish I could say that it was conspiring and I went about all this, you know, intricate, tricky way to kind of manipulate the situation. But literally, I was in a car with guys and they got a phone call. But yeah, I mean, I've definitely reached out to directors whose work I've liked and respected and said, "Look, here's some of my stuff. I feel like this is what I like about your work and why, whether it's a tone or, you know, an aesthetic or, you know, the editorial paces of it is slower for a commercial or something like that, and it feels more filmic or whatever." And always kind of picked out something and then made contact with them. And sometimes we've ended up working together. Sometimes they're like, "Yeah, you know, I've got my guy or girl and, you know, I'm pretty good, but thanks very much. See you down the road." But a lot of times things have come from that as well. Yeah. So if you're trying to align yourself with like-minded people who have similar sensibilities, then it's only going to cross-pollinate and make both of your work better. You have to be patient a little bit, and I know that that's hard sometimes because it's frustrating to see other people maybe leapfrog you in ways that make you feel like it's never going to happen. And that happened to me as well, for sure. I think it happens to all of us because, like I said before, everything happens for different people at different times. So, you know, Tony Scott was 42 when he made Top Gun, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he started his career much later in life, you know, and he went on to make some unbelievably memorable classic films. So just try and be patient. And I know that's easier said than done.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really hard because it's a long game, right? Like it takes 10
It
years
is.
maybe plus.
Yeah. I'm a 20-year overnight success. There is so much to learn. And every job I will learn something new. I just learned about this fantastic new moving light combination 3 days ago that I didn't know existed. And I found a use for them that completely saved my ass. And it was because my gaffer suggested it. And so it's just, the amount to learn in this industry, particularly as a cinematographer, is 100% infinite. And also, it should take a long time because if the director, the irony is that a lot of the time the least experienced person on a set is the director. The person that will do the least amount of shoot days per calendar year is often the director because they will spend months in pre. Maybe they've spent years trying to get the film up or such and such, you know, but they might shoot a 2-day ad and then there's 4 weeks of post or 6 weeks of post or something like that, you know, because of the requirements of that project. So maybe they're not on set as much as, you know, G&E or art department or me. So when things go awry or directors are a bit stuck about things, the first person they will turn to get them out of the fix is normally the cinematographer. And so that's where the patience and the experience really pays off, because you have an answer to their question that will help them and help the production.
You wouldn't happen to have a power source to a ham radio in here, would you? Because I have a... Never mind.
I used to think that I wanted to have my stuff look like a certain cinematographer's work because I respected them so much. So I would try and mimic a bit of that work, I guess. And my advice would be to not do that if you're tempted to do that, because that person's already doing that work. So you should probably, you know, maybe you can take a little bit of how they might do certain things, but you have to be an individual. You have to have your own style and sensibility and your own approach, because that's what people will hire you for. They'll hire you for the way you interpret what this work is, not necessarily because you're a cheaper version of that other guy or girl. You know what I mean? So I guess that's maybe one piece of advice, is just stay true to what it is that you think is good, and you'll be okay.